We are currently living through what many biologists consider to be the sixth mass extinction that the world has ever seen. What's the scariest theory known to man? I'm so excited to see you again, viewer. Thanks for coming to another story time. If we haven't met yet, I'm Andrew, your narrator. I don't want to miss any more story times with you. So be sure to like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell button. Or else I'll steal your anime waifu body pillow. Enough messing around, let's get into the stories. The statistical probability that not everyone who reads this thread will still be alive by Christmas. Edit. Cody has gone, but hope you are all still out there. The infinite Hitler's theory states that there is always an infinite number of Hitlers hiding right outside of your field of vision. Broca's basilisk. A superintelligent AI will determine how to retroactively punish those who did not help it come into existence. A supercomputer in the future will kill you today for not helping it 10 years from now. Eternal hell. It's literally the worst thing any human can imagine, that by being a bad person, you will be condemned to torture for an infinite amount of time. You might be able to reason that it's justifiable to be tortured for as long as you lived, or some algorithm related to such, but eternity is overkill for the sins committed during an unimaginably minute sliver of time. Let's say we have an anthill in the middle of the forest. And right next to the anthill, they're building a 10-lane superhighway. And the question is, would the ants be able to understand what a 10-lane superhighway is? Would the ants be able to understand the technology and the intentions of the beings building the highway next to them? So it's not that we can't pick up the signals from Planet X using our technology, it's that we can't even comprehend what the beings from Planet X are or what they're trying to do. It's so beyond us that even if they really wanted to enlighten us, it would be like trying to teach ants about the internet. I forget the name of the argument, but it goes as follows: assumptions. The brain is the origin of all consciousness. The brain operates on electrical impulses. External stimuli can affect the way the brain operates. Any external stimuli to the brain can be simulated to a degree that the brain cannot distinguish these simulated stimuli from natural stimuli. The point? You could be a brain in a jar, being fed false impulses for your entire life by an external source, or you, still a brain in a jar, could be hallucinating your entire life from lack of stimuli. As an astronomer, I feel like I always pop into these threads to clarify theories people saw on a documentary once. So here's one that freaks me out a little. That the universe is a false vacuum. This is, in short, a theory-scientific hypothesis that our universe is actually in a false phase state as part of a larger universe, like if it were in a temporary thing. Think the real universe is a pot of boiling water, and we are just within a bubble forming at the bottom of the pot. Eventually, however, that false vacuum has to pop, yes, even after billions of years in this false state. And we and everything we know in our visible universe will disappear in an instant with no warning whatsoever, and there's nothing you can do about it. Sweet dreams. The Great Filter. It's a theory about why the universe seems so filled with potential for life, and yet we haven't found it. It states that somewhere between pre-life and an advanced civilization capable of colonizing the stars, there's a great filter that stops them and ends life. This means humans fit into one of these three scenarios. A. We're rare, meaning we've already passed the Great Filter, unlike other civilizations on other planets. B. We're the first, meaning conditions in the universe are only now life-friendly, and we're among many on our way to the capability of colonization. C. We haven't hit the filter yet, meaning we're ducked. If this one is true, it means finding life or proof of life on Mars or Europa would be awful news, because it would almost certainly mean the filter is still ahead of us instead of behind us. A bit late, but here it is. You might never be alone. Imagine if there was a 2D person. If you stare at them a certain way, they can't see you. All you have to do is look from a top view and they won't know you're there, and they would never know. And living their life as 2D, they would never be able to comprehend how something could be looking down on them. Now imagine a 4D person. They could be looking at you from a 4-dimensional angle. An angle that you will never understand. They could be right beside you, but you wouldn't know, and you would never know. And just as we could interact with the 2D person, the 4D person could interact with us. But as long as they don't want us to, we could never interact with them, yet even know of them. Edit 2. A user gave me an idea to extend this. A being of a higher dimension could pull us into a separate 3D plane. You could be pulled into another world where nothing else exists. And they could just leave you there. Terror management theory. Everything that humanity has ever accomplished beyond basic survival has been motivated by a fundamental and irreducible fear of non-existence. Our conception of self and self-esteem generally is simply a buffer against the anxiety that comes with recognizing that we will cease to be. Culture is just a massive shared delusion to mitigate our fear of the unknown and ultimately of death. Thus we want to imagine certain works of art as timeless, or to place value in family lines and offspring, to project ourselves beyond death. We take comfort in our value systems and the structures that arise from them, whether that's through conceptions of biological kinship, national political identity, religious faith, etc. This includes belief in the inherent value of ensuring the future of humanity through scientific progress. Indeed, much of modern Western life is devoted to the avoidance of death, the various euphemisms and stock phrases in mourning, the entire funeral home industry that serves to remove death from the ordinary course of life, from the home and onto the embalming table or into the crematorium. We build up the artifice to avoid the brutal reality. There are no turtles at the bottom, it's nothingness all the way down. Edit 1. To counter the bleakness, I need to clarify that this isn't necessarily my worldview, and it's certainly not my favorite pet theory. It offers an answer to a fundamental why so that we can focus on the far more important and far more interesting questions regarding meaning making, value creation, cultural development, lived existence itself. This theory doesn't have to be a conversation stopper. In fact, it should be a springboard into fine-tuned discussions about the things that make us human, without getting bogged down in the navel-gazing big-picture questions. We are currently living through what many biologists consider to be the sixth mass extinction that the world has ever seen. This is going to be an interesting puzzle for the species that comes after us. It wasn't until around the year 1800 that humanity reached a population of 1 billion after thousands and thousands of years. In the 215 years since then, the world population has increased to 7.2 billion. That exponential growth has very large and long-lasting negative effects on our planet and will continue to do so until we reach carrying capacity and die off. Edit. I'll expand on human population a little more. Most modern scientists have the human species being around 200,000 years old based on fossil records. Around the year 1800 is when the human population first hit 1 billion. That means it took 198,200 years to reach that number. Human population hit 2 billion around 1927. Human population hit 3 billion around 1959. Human population hit 4 billion in 1974, 5 billion in 1987, 6 billion in 1999, and 7 billion in 2012. It's at the point where we are growing by 1 billion people nearly every 12 to 13 years that is not very sustainable for a long period of time, no matter how you look at it. Especially with the modernization of third world countries, with the development of those countries comes increased life expectancy and lower birth rates, with access to medicine, education, housing, and sanitation. So with that you say okay, the birth rate decreases, but life expectancy increases. What does that mean? That still results in more people being born than people dying, thus still net population gain, and not only is that net gain, but that is net gain people who live longer. So that means 11 billion people, obviously not all 11 billion in reality, projected in 2100 will live longer and die less often, while still the population increases. I am definitely not an expert on population growth and resource usage by humans, but it definitely is not a good outlook overall. Then we get to the actual problem, limited resources on Earth. The population now alone overconsumes. What will happen when we have reached the 10 to 11 billion mark? We are slowly killing our own species and the species around us as we have to increase our consumption every year to account for our population growth and extended life expectancies. To put it simply, it takes Earth 18 months or so to produce the ecological services humanity uses in 1 year with 7.2 billion people. What will happen when the population reaches 11 billion? It's not a matter of if we run out of resources due to population and consumption, it's when.
Like and subscribe for more funny, interesting, and scary r/ask Reddit videos.